Barak Tehawa, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is A Large Migration of People. And this title comes through the inspiration of this video I was watching, which I'm going to get to. But last night, I was going through my archives, just different stuff that I have saved on external hard drives. And I ran into this video that we haven't spoken about in a minute. We used to go into it a lot. Well, not a lot, but we used to go into it and mention it. And last night I ran across it and I was watching it and getting into it. So I said I was curious to see if it was still on YouTube. They have a variation of it. They don't have the actual one that I was listening to, on my external hard drive. But nevertheless, they had something that was it's the same individual breaking stuff down, but he this was like a different it was a different show. I mean, it was a lot of the information was similar, but it was there's a difference in it. Now the guy, he's pretty much, I think he's an atheist, so I'm not looking at it from that perspective. I'm looking at it from the perspective of information that he's bringing out concerning pretty much the world maps and things of that nature. And there's certain things that he said within that discourse, so to speak, that I want to touch on in this lesson. It gave me an idea last night. So this is one of the lessons I wanted to go into. What I'm speaking about is forbidden history of the world before Columbus. All right. Now there's an individual by the name of George Noory, which is the interviewee, the one that's interviewing, or the interviewer. And then you have a guy by the name of Gunnar Thompson, which is the guy that studied ancient maps. And in these ancient maps that they studied, there was a lot of history that was left out of these maps when it comes to Europe, because they didn't want a lot of this information to come out, and you better believe that, in those times, going up into the Renaissance period, and prior to that, they had knowledge of this side of the world. There's been a lot of travels to this side of the world, prior to so-called Christopher Columbus. That was just Esau's way of pushing that white supremacy once again, and trying to keep that narrative. And a lot of this history is out there, but they don't teach it in the schools because they have to keep that picture that Columbus, discovered the new world, which he didn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little of the video. Hopefully they don't strike it. This is just for educational purpose. I don't own the copyrights to this video, and I'm just using it not for any monetary gain, but just for educational purposes. So hopefully they don't strike it. If they do, oh well. I put this in the description box, so those of you brothers that are interested in watching it. I'm going to play about 2 minutes and some change of it, and I want to stop it at this one point of something that he says that gave me the idea for the title. And Lord's will, it'll be edifying. Listen up.
We find out independently from other sources, archives in the Vatican, for example, that a Vatican agent or a Venetian agent named Niccolo di Conti went to the Far East and came back in about the year 1425, and he brought with him maps that were taken essentially from the Ming Chinese at that point in time. And prior to this, Niccolo and Matteo Polo and Marco Polo had gone to the Far East also as agents for the Vatican, and they brought back maps. And a little bit later in time, there was an agent named Pero de Covilha, who was a Portuguese agent, and he came back to the Mediterranean region, or he sent back to the Mediterranean region maps between 1487 and 1493. So the European the Yuan Chinese under Kublai Khan, and also the Ming Chinese were engaged in mapping the world, and they wanted to get a hold of those maps because they knew that geographical intelligence was vital to commercial development and their rivalries with other nations. And so what happened was there was
and that's Esau's whole thing, trying to control the narrative. You know, that's why it says he heapeth unto him all people and pretty much all of their resources, you know, and everything that they have. So the knowledge of this side of the world was already there, you know. It's just that the picture that was painted is that Christopher Columbus sailed the sea blue and he discovered the so-called New World, which is total bullshit and nonsense. Anyway, let's listen on.
a collusion of interest and alliance between the Portuguese and the Venetians, and they shared the information. So the Portuguese knew in advance, because of these agents, essentially the geography of the whole world before Columbus sailed, and they didn't want to let this information out in the public, so they published bogus maps.
What's fascinating is this other image you sent us about the 1475 BC, which looks like an Egyptian, right, platelet, and it shows maize, which is corn, and a pineapple, and I thought those were from the New World. What are they showing up on a 1473 BC mural?
Yeah, these are New World plants, and in the past 30
Listen good. These are New World plants talking about maize or corn and a pineapple, right? Listen good.
years that I've been doing research, I found an enormous number of New World plants that show up in the Old World, and also Old World plants that show up in the New World. And this is a consequence of tremendous numbers of
merchants
selling back and forth across.
Let me bring it back a little bit.
What are they showing up on a 1473 BC mural?
Yeah, these are New World plants, and in the past 30-odd years that I've been doing research, I found an enormous number of New World plants that show up in the Old World, and also Old World plants that show up in the New World. And this is a consequence of tremendous numbers of merchants sailing back and forth across the oceans, and also occasional migrations of large masses of people from the Old World to the New World.
See? Let's hear that again. I don't know if y'all caught that. Let's hear that again.
Plants that show up in the New World. And this is a consequence of tremendous numbers of merchants sailing back and forth across the oceans, and also occasional migrations of large masses of people from the Old World to the New World.
Occasional migrations of large masses of people from the Old World to the New World. So you know what came to mind when I heard that? The history of Israel and the 10 tribes, you know, coming over to this side of the world, because they already knew this side of the world existed. Remember, you had King Solomon that hired Hiram Abiff, as they call him, which his name is Hiram. You know, he had Phoenicians, you know, and these Hamites, they had knowledge of the sea. They had navy. You know, they had a navy at sea. They were experts, you know, in reading the stars and, you know, being able to navigate. They were experts in dealing with currents, because the oceans are all they're set up in currents. And if you catch the right current, you know, it'll move you and take you in the right direction. You know, but you have to know how to navigate it. And this is why the Lord said he held back those floods. So this is proof that, you know, when the Israelites came to this side of the world, they already knew where they were going. You know, and this is proof, like he just said. He said the reason why you had Old World or New World plants showing up in the Old World is because of, you know, merchant sailings, and also migrations of large populations of people from the Old World to the New World, you know? So what I want to do is I want to get into a little bit of the history, going to 2 Kings. You know, this is the King Hosea, which was the Ephraimite king. Oh, and by the way, the kingdom was split into two: the kingdom of Judah, the kingdom of Ephraim, or the kingdom of Israel. Some of the kings of Judah were righteous. A lot of them were wicked, but every last one of the kings of Israel was wicked. And that was a consequence, and the reason why that happened was because the kingdom of Israel was going to be the first one to fall, you know, according to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And that's why all of the kings were wicked. As to where you had some kings among Judah that were righteous kings. So this is 2 Kings 17:1. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea, the son of Elah, to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. And you'll read that about all of the kings of Israel, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria. Now, Elder Pastor brought out years ago that this Shalmaneser was Shalmaneser the fifth, and Shalmaneser, Tiglath-Pileser, things like that. Those are titles that were given to these different Assyrian kings. Just like you had Caesar, you had emperor, you have the Tsar, you have Kaiser, you have Seleucid, you have Ptolemy. These are all titles, of different kings that ruled, in certain different periods of time. So Shalmaneser was Shalmaneser the fifth, king of Assyria. And Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and brought no presents to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gozan and in the cities of the Medes. So this is when this Assyrian king brought our forefathers to this region of land here. You have, this is the Persian Gulf. You have the Euphrates and the Tigris River. And in between that, as you go up north towards the north, you have Assyria, you have the land of the Medes, all in this area there. All right. And this is where Israel was brought to, the northern kingdom was brought to. This is why when we read the book of Tobit, Tobit was an Israelite of the tribe of Naphtali that was in the Assyrian captivity. Now forefathers of the northern kingdom were in this captivity, and you still have a lot of Israelites in these areas. So then from this place, this is where the northern kingdom was brought into captivity, and this is where the whole council took place that we read of, which goes in more in depth of it in the book of 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter and the 39th verse. It says, and whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoner out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. So they were brought from the land of Samaria into the land of Assyria. Okay? It says, but they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a country where never mankind dwelt. Now, this side of the world, over here, the so-called old world, as they call it, this was already inhabited by people. So where was the land that they were going to go to that was not inhabited? All of these lands were inhabited. So where did they go? It says that they might there keep the statutes which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow places of the river, right? So that's what happened. I wish I could get a bigger map to show, let me see if I could get another map. Just bear with me. Just bear with me. Beautiful, beautiful. This is what I'm talking about. All right, here you got Iran, you got Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Israel. All right, Euphrates River, Tigris River. Israel was around here in these areas here. So it says they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. So what does the Euphrates lead to? And you keep going down, it enters into what? The Persian Gulf. And the Persian Gulf goes into the Arabian Sea, which goes into the Indian Sea, and it goes down around the around Africa. And then if you look up certain maps that have currents, you'll see the different currents going a certain way, right? So it says, and they entered into Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. See, because in these, when you watch the movie The Bounty, right, with racist ass Melly Gibson and Anthony Hopkins, they show that there was a particular place around Africa that you couldn't really enter in through because the waters was too turbulent, and there's a lot of different storms and cyclones and different things that happen. So what the Lord did was he held back. He sent his angels. They held back all of those things so that our forefathers could have safe passage over to this side of the world. Remember, this guy Gunnar Thompson said that these plants, these New World plants, ended up over here because of merchant sailing and large migration of people from the old world to the new world. Okay? And what is a migration? Not a migraine. A migration is seasonal movement of animals from one region to another, movement from one part of something to another. Human migration. Human migration, the permanent change of residence by an individual or group. It excludes such movements as nomadism, migrant labor, commuting, and tourism, all of which are transitory in nature. Yeah, and that's true. Nomads, But the point is, human migration is the permanent change of residence by an individual or group. And that's what happened. This group, which is the 10 tribes, they came over to this side of the world. It says, for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. So my question is, where from this point here would be a place where no man ever lived, that the Israelites went to, that took them a year and a half to get there? Now, we know according to the scriptures that King Solomon, he had the navy. We know that he had a navy here, Ezion Geber, which was fought between Judah and Edom, from time to time. We know he had a navy of Tarshish over here in Spain, and we know that according to the law, to the scriptures, these Hamites would travel a year and a half to and from to get a year and a half to and a year and a half back to bring all different types of wood and exotic animals and things to King Solomon to build up his kingdom. So where did they go? And how long would it take? Where did they go? Where did the Israelites go that took them a year and a half to get there? The 10 tribes. And nobody can answer that. Some people say they came up here somewhere. It don't take a year and a half to get from here to there. Now the scriptures tell us that every 3 years, these Zidonians would come and bring these different exotic birds and peacocks, which were turkeys, and things of that nature back to King Solomon. So they came all the way over to this side of the world. And some people just refused to accept that. But hey, tough titty. It says, for through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arsareth. Now, Arsareth is a corruption of two words. And that corruption of two words is the words Akarath, Acharath and Arataza. Arataza, Acharath, which is another land, which we're going to read here, Deuteronomy 29:27. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against this land to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And the Lord rooted them out of their land in anger and in wrath and in great indignation, and cast them into another land, as it is this day. So when you look up the word Arataza, Acharath, you could see where the corruption could have came in here, Arsareth. Arataza, Acharath, Arsareth, another land. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arsareth. Then dwelt they there unto the latter time. See? So the latter times was all the way when so-called Columbus discovered America, and that's around the same time when Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, as for the most part, were being brought over to this side of the world to serve captivity, because that was the Lord bringing them over here to join all of the tribes back together. It says, and now when they shall begin to come, meaning the other three tribes, the highest shall stay the springs of the stream again, that they might go through. Therefore sawest thou the multitude with peace. Yeah, because the multitude with peace are going to be all 12 tribes gathered here in America, and the elect be delivered out of here. Okay? It says, but those that be left behind of thy people are they that are found within my borders. And this is the three tribes that were in the borders of Israel until the Romans came and besieged Jerusalem, and Jake fled. A lot of them fled into the interiors of Africa. Others fled up, to Asia Minor, into to Europe, wherever they ran to. All right. And from the western coast of Africa, this is where they got the Israelites or to be slaves that were brought all the way over to the Americas. All the way over here to the Americas. From this side of the world, here you see the west coast of Africa, and they were brought all the way over here to this side of the world. And when Jake, the 10 tribes came out of this region and came down around, when they came down around here, one of the first places they landed on was here, more than likely here in what's known today as Brazil. Okay? Because when you look at the currents lead you right there. And some of them kept migrating up, Some of them, could have went past there and, came up in this area, but they all migrated all up in here, all up in so-called South America, Central America, Mexico, the so-called Caribbean islands, so-called North America, Canada, all of this. All right. So there's been maps out there, that before so-called Christopher Columbus, came over to this side of the world. There's many different maps that deal with that whole situation. So that whole shit you're being taught of in school that Christopher Columbus discovered the New World is total nonsense, total BS. That was taught to you in school. So I just wanted to, matter of fact, I'll play this once again because this is so nice.
Ural.
Yeah, these are New World plants, and in the past 30-odd years that I've been doing research, I found an enormous number of New World plants that show up in the Old World, and also Old World plants that show up in the New World. And this is a consequence of tremendous numbers of merchants sailing back and forth across the oceans, and also occasional migrations of large masses of people from the Old World to the New World. Oregon University geographer named Carl Johannesson has recently published a book detailing a lot of the ancient plant dispersals before Columbus. But you're right.
See? So, and what was that large migration of people from the old world to the new world? Those are the 10 tribes that came over to this side of the world. And matter of fact, since the brother put the scripture up, I'm gonna all right, just gonna read a couple of these precepts here. And shalom to the Akim, on the comment board. And the Akwath. 1 Kings 11, nope. This one. 1 Kings 9:27 and 28. And Hiram sent in the navy his servants, shipmen that had knowledge of the sea, with the servants of Solomon. Yeah, because these were expert navigators in the seas. It says, and you think that Esau was the first one to start drawing maps? The guy Gunnar Thompson just told you in this interview that you had Moab that was drawing maps of the world. They actually have a map of the world in the early 1400s, like 1426, I think. I forget the name of the map, but it's a Moabite map of the world, showing the world, in this side of the world. Let's see if I could find that real quick. Just bear with me 1 second. See if I could get a bigger one. Just bear with me 1 second, like I said. Let's see this one here. This is a map. It said 1418. I thought it was 1426. And you can clearly see, this is like Africa. This looks like, Europe. And this looks like South America, Central America, North America, Canada. As you can see. Now, I don't read Chinese or Mandarin or whatever that language is. But you can see these are old maps dating back then, and they had many other ones before that, so this whole madness that Christopher Columbus discovered the new world was total BS. But this gave an opportunity to go into some of that history of the 10 tribes coming over here, because when they said that, the first thing that came to my mind was when he said the large migration of people from the old world to the new world. The first thing that came to my mind was the 10 tribes coming over here to this side of the world. All right, so with that, I pray that your brothers have been edified. Until the next time I say, Shalom.